Welcome back to the Mac Home Development YouTube channel. I'm Madison, this is Cindy. We are here to talk to you guys today about transitioning from real estate agent to investor. I know you have experience with that. You started out as a real estate agent.
So I started as an agent in 2011. At the time I was just working as like an assistant, doing marketing stuff, setting up people's open houses, really not doing much agent work. About 6 months later that I realized that I'm like, all right, this is boring. I ended up going to an actual brokerage and I met my partner at the time. He was working for an investor in South Florida. The investor lived in South Florida, did all the foreclosure auction. He drove around, looked at them, told him which ones to buy, and then was kind of his boots on the ground of renovating and putting them on the market.
Is he an agent too?
Yes. He had his license and he was working as an agent. Pretty much the looking and numbers for this guy. When I started the brokerage, I ended up meeting him. I was like, wow, this seems like a lot of fun, really cool. So I started working with him, making like 10% of each deal, doing paperwork. I was not doing anything. I was like, I really want to see what you do and how to do this. I started riding along, looking at everything, him showing me all the numbers, meeting contractors. And it was about 3 years later that I was like, I want to do this myself. I had the experience at that point and decided that I could do this.
In the time that you were doing paperwork and things for them, were you actively like showing houses, selling houses?
I think I did 6 my first year, helping a couple buyers and then actually listing and selling a couple of houses. I did that and then started working with him, so I was kind of doing both. Once I jumped on board doing the investor stuff, then we started buying like double the houses. So then it was so much overload that like we couldn't do normal buying and selling. We just had to focus on the one investor.
That investor, was he basically just fronting the money kind of thing and you guys were going in and telling him which houses to buy, like everything was kind of done for him?
Yep.
Kind of thing?
Yeah, he did the online auction. He could do everything from his computer. So he'd send us a list of like, this is what I'm interested in. Go to the properties, tell me what they need. So we would go to the properties, do a quick analysis and say, all right, you can buy it for this much money based on it being able to sell it this much. And then from there, he could do it from his computer, didn't need us. Once he bought the property, then we would take over and go in and get all the contractors, get everything done, and then put it on the market to sell it.
Were you guys the ones to list it and sell it too? Okay.
Yep. We had full control over being able to do the rehab the way that we actually saw that it needed to be done based on the market. We got to make all those decisions. We had to stay in the budget, but we got to make all the design choices. Got to make sure everything looked good, and then from there we'd be able to list it and then do all the agent backwork stuff. We were working as investors but also agents at the same time.
Do you think having your license helped you to be able to see for him like which ones would be good investments and now seeing which ones would be good investments for you?
I 100% like anybody who would ask me, should I get my license? Because there's a lot of risk having your license when you're an investor because you're buying for yourself and from sellers. But if you're doing it correct and ethically and doing the right thing, there's no issue. So for me, I think that everybody should get their license. If you don't have it, you're relying on other people to tell you what the property's worth. There's no reason for you not to have it. You can list your own property. You can do your own property search to try and find them on the MLS. I would say get your license as long as you're doing the right thing, which you should be anyways, that you should have your license. There's no reason not to.
That investor who lived in South Florida, was he also an agent?
No. He just lived down there, and was this full-time job is just going online, doing online auctions, and flipping houses.
You said that there was negative things that people can do if they have their license and they're also working as an investor. What are those things?
When you have your real estate license, you have a duty to the public, to protect the public. When you go in and you're being an investor, a wholesaler, whatever you're doing, and you don't let them know. So I always just to say, disclose everything. You don't let them know that you're an agent, that you hold a license. Make sure they sign off on that. A no brokerage agreement, all these things, you can get yourself in trouble. On all of our contracts, it states what we are, what we hold, what we're doing. And it even tells them like, hey, our end goal is to make a profit on this. So everything is black and white. We're very transparent. So they can't come back later and say, I didn't know you were flipping my house, how dare you? You signed it right here. Some wholesalers, investors don't want to hold a license because they have that fear of sellers being able to come back and say, well, you didn't tell me, or this happened and you didn't have the public's best interest, is kind of where people look at it. As long as you're doing the right thing, there should be no issues. We have a whole section in the contract that's like this big that tells them who we are, what we do, that we hold licenses, that we don't have a brokerage agreement with them, that we're not representing them, we're not representing anybody. So we have it really like written out so everybody understands.
You've said before that the MLS is a big source for you with leads, and you can only have access to the MLS if you're an agent.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, you could pay somebody who has a license to go through, but I mean, for me, my MLS is set up so perfectly that literally every morning I sit down and I have 3 tabs, and they're all like exactly what I'm looking for, and I can go through, and it takes me 10 minutes every morning to run through, see what's out there, run comps really quick, and decide if I want to look at any of them for the day. That's something that would take other people hours.
So for other people looking to get started as an investor who maybe have been agents or even who have not been agents, do you think there's a lot of like opportunities similar to what you did, as in like working for another investor?
Yeah, I mean, there's investors out there all the time. Yeah. There's a lot who don't have licenses. You could bring that value to them. That could be a really lucrative thing. So if you could go to this investor and say, hey, what are you looking for? What are your numbers? What are your areas? And then you could go prove your worth. I mean, that investor's going to call you. They can call you and say, hey, I need you to find me properties. You're going to get the commission on that. Once they fix up the property, if you make a good enough relationship, they're going to have you list it. So now you are making front end, back end commissions. And if you have an investor who's doing a couple of those a month, you don't have to go find buyers and sellers to work with. I think that is something that any agent can do if you want to get into investing, but maybe not like the actual buy-sell side.
Or just even see if you like it.
Yeah, you can dabble in it.
Just like test it out.
Test the waters.
How can people find investors like that?
Networking. Networking. Look at your local RIAs. I mean, we have a Jax RIA here. We have another local big real estate group. There's multiple real estate investor meetings. You can find them on meetups.com. You can find them on Facebook. Some post on Craigslist. All you take is like talking to certain people and like, hey, I'm just looking to work for an investor. And one realtor could be like, oh, I had an investor contact me, but that's not what I do. Here's his number. It's always networking to find pretty much anything you want. So it's so important in the beginning to show up to these networking events and tell everybody what you're looking to do. I know it sounds weird to tell everybody like, hey, I'm looking to buy houses, and people are like, cool, I don't care. But tell everybody, because all it takes is that one time for somebody to say like, oh yeah, I forgot, and like text you this great deal.
People who are agents now and are just thinking about starting investing, what would you recommend that the first steps they take be?
You need to know kind of the numbers and how we're thinking as investors, which there are obviously a ton of free education. You don't have to pay for any guru thing. Like you can find that online. And then to really, I would say, know your areas, know your ARVs. Quick off the top of your head, I mean, I pretty much know every area of Jacksonville. I would say learn the areas, learn the ARVs, learn what they're going for, and learn the investor formula because everybody's different. There's certain formulas that some investors are like stuck to. So I would just learn those and be able to just go off that.
Another thing I just want to kind of touch on is a lot of people see flipping houses like on HGTV and things like that. But I know that you've been through a couple that weren't so glamorous or fun to be a part of.
I mean, we've had multiple, just not even just for him, but for ourselves, that we're like, oh, this is going to be great. And lo and behold, it's got a massive septic problem $8,000 later. There's certain things that I'm doing my best educated guess. And at the end of the day, when things start getting actually inspected and working, that you're like, oh my God, that was not part of the plan. A lot of those shows, they will show like, like that's not part of the budget.
Darn.
Every single time he does that. But he always says, like, that's not part of the budget. Like, no, none of it's part of the budget. If you don't think something's going to come up, like, you're being really naive because something always comes up. This morning, we just got a phone call that a pipe broke.
Oh, yeah.
That's not something that's in
the
budget.
But
Yeah.
I feel like on those shows, it looks very glamorous, like flipping houses, and there's like things like was that last week or 2 weeks ago where we went to that house in like fairy tale land.
Oh my
It
God,
sounded all
squatter.
cute, and yeah, there was a man sleeping in the bedroom.
They don't show you that. That's the
Right.
funny thing. Is like they show you like, here's the white shaker cabinets and the shiplap.
Right.
And everybody's happy.
Right.
But then in the reality is, yes, that guy scared the living crap out of us. We were out of that house before he even realized what happened. And he broke a window and there was a lot of chaos. But they don't show you that, which I think would be really fun because that's actually like the fun of the job to me. Like I would rather the craziness than I would like just the here's this farmhouse.
Too boring, yeah.
It is. Like I mean flipping houses is fun. Like I always like to see
Right.
the craziness. People put carpet in the bathroom. It's so gross and holes in the wall. Like
Right.
that's the kind of stuff that I like to see.
If you guys liked this video, give it a like on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. We will be back next week with more tips and tricks on flipping houses and investing in real estate.